Hey everyone, this is Sam and you're tuned in to Yoga with Touchstone Climbing. Today's practice is the first of a series of shorter practices called Asana Breakdown. And Asana Breakdown is a class that is really centered on getting into certain particular poses that you might find in other classes and sometimes don't get a lot of time spent on them so that we can figure out how to get into them. So what we'll do in this practice is warm ourselves up a little bit. The sequence that we'll use to prep is going to be a compilation of some of the poses that we could use to warm ourselves up for a pose that we're going to focus on. And then we'll spend the rest of the time focusing on that one pose. So today's focus, the posture that we're going to focus on is Bakasana or Kakasana. So they get kind of tossed around a lot when you hear them in class. Crow or crane become sort of like the same pose. We're going to focus on the more traditional one, and we'll talk about how you can do one or the other, and essentially the options are always going to be there for you. So crow pose, which is often called Bakasana, which is traditionally called Kakasana in Sanskrit, and we're going to work on that today. So if you've ever really wanted to try this pose, or you've wanted to practice to kind of work into it and play around for the purpose of this pose is all we're really going to work on today. So let's get ourselves set up by arranging our mat space. You can have props if you'd like. There isn't really anything that you need in particular. My favorite props to have at a mat are always 2 blocks and a blanket, just in case, and even if the teacher doesn't tell you that you need them. So have those things handy, or whatever you're using at home as those props, and we're gonna get started. So we'll meet in an easy cross-legged position with the ankles or the shins crossed or overlapped. You can place your hands over your knees, palms facing up or down. Draw the shoulders back on top of the hips. And as you go to sit up tall, make the chin parallel to the ground. And we'll begin by closing the eyes and settling ourselves into this seat. And let's just take the first few moments to tune inward, to arrive. And as we are tuning in, start to bring an awareness to your breath moving in and out of your nose. You don't have to change anything about your breath. We're just starting to become more aware. Inhales, lengthening up the spine. Exhales, allowing us to settle more deeply into our seat. Now, as a reminder, moving into this practice, working on this particular shape doesn't mean that we already have to know how to do it. And so this is a practice really here for our ability to continue to grow in our practice. And whatever it is that comes of working on this pose, whether we want to do it more or do it less, we then know that we have the potential to do that. And no matter what, after this practice, we'll be better at, we will have gained some knowledge, and we will have gained some experience from moving in ways that support this shape and support the attempt of this shape. So let's practice today letting go of the outcome and allowing that to be like our theme or our intention. And we'll bring that into our heart. That allows us to move, hopefully, more freely. Let's begin our practice fully. Bring your palms together in front of your heart for prayer, lifting the heart up into the thumbs. We'll sound one collective Om together, even if we are all in different spaces. The resonance from our voices and the vibration carries far beyond our personal space. So let's join them together. Exhale all of the breath out of your nose first to prepare. Inhale deeply through the nose. Gently release your hands and blink your eyes open. And to start our practice, we're going to lay on our backs first. So go ahead and lay down. Once you're reclined, we're going to keep the back of the head flat, relax the shoulders down, press your back firmly into the mat, and lift up your knees. Grab onto your kneecaps with your hands and circle your knees around in opposite directions. And for now, just kind of let your feet be loose. Let your arms straighten and bend according to how far or close your knees are, and then we'll switch the direction of the circle. Okay, now let's bring the knees back to center. Bring the big toes into touch. We're going to keep the big toes touching one another. Drop the heels towards your thighs or towards your hips, and then circle your knees again. This time keeping the knees connected, or keeping the toes connected. Maybe notice if there's a difference between this version and the one that we just did. And let's take the circles the other way. Definitely feeling more energy in the inner thighs and the core. You may or may not be feeling exactly the same thing as me. That's totally fine. Okay, let's go ahead and bring the knees back over the hips and then just relax your feet here. Okay, now we're going to keep the knees lifted. Place the hands behind the back of the head. Draw the elbows wide. And just let your head carry your hands carry your head, and let your head just hang into your hands. And we're going to hold here and start to lift the chest up a little bit higher. Okay, aiming your heart up toward the ceiling. Okay, now bring the big toes together, open the knees wide, and really take your knees as wide as you can. Your core might start to shake here. Breathe in and out of your nose. I don't know if you can see me shaking through the screen, but there's definitely shaking happening. Okay, keep lifting your heart up. Elbows wide, one more breath. And then lower your head, release your feet down to the ground, pausing here. And then let's take the hands out from behind the back of the head, wiggle your shoulders onto your back. And we're going to take the right hand behind the back of the head, and we're going to crunch to the left. And we'll release, take an inhale, exhale, lift up, right elbow toward the left knee. Inhale, come out, and exhale, twist one more time, doing a little crunch. Inhale to release, switch your hands, right arm goes down toward the ground, take a breath in. Exhale, left elbow to right knee. Inhale, come back down. Exhale, twisted crunch. Inhale to release. Exhale one more time, crunch and twist. Inhale to release. Now one last time, bring your hands both behind the back of the head, right and left, and then we're going to lift up the feet, bring the big toes together. Okay, so kind of like that crunch we just did, but now we're going to take a deep breath in and puff your back up into the mat. And as you exhale, draw your elbows and your knees toward each other. Complete the exhale, inhale and release. So knees and elbows separate. Exhale, bring them in. Maybe they touch, maybe they don't. Inhale, release. Last time, exhale, bring them in. Inhale, release, and then completely let everything come back down to the mat. We're going to roll over onto one side. Press up away from the ground. And let's come up onto our hands and our knees. I'm going to face this way. And we'll set ourselves up so that the shoulders are on top of the wrists. First fingers point forward, and the hips are going to stack right on top of the knees. Let's point the toes back behind us with the ankles hugging in so that they're not popping out to the sides and they're hugging in right behind the knees. Anchor down through both of your hands. Keep your arms straight. And let's do a few rounds of cow and cat poses. So complete your next exhale. And with a breath in, lower the belly, open the chest, lift the sit bones. Exhale, lift the belly, dome the back, and let your head go. 2 more times. Inhale, belly sinks, chest widens, hips lift, maybe gaze up. Exhale out of the nose, lifting the front body and releasing the head down. 1 more time. Inhale through the nose, opening up into cow pose. Exhale, lift up underneath you, round the back body. And then inhale, come back to a neutral spine. We're going to pause right here. And we're going to tuck the toes under. And as you tuck the toes under, we're going to stabilize using our feet, and we're just going to move the shoulders in what we'll call today shoulder push-ups or scapular retractions, which is a more anatomical name. Okay, so again, the arms are going to stay completely straight. The belly and the hips are going to stay in the same place, but we're going to draw the shoulder blades in toward each other as much as we can, and then push them off of the back. Okay, steady hands here. We're going to do a few more. So you're drawing the shoulder blades in toward each other and then pushing the shoulder blades off of your back. And feeling for your shoulder blades or your scapula while breathing in and out of the nose. And just check in that you're not doing any cow-cat stuff in the middle of the body or the lower spine as you're doing this, which might be kind of hard to limit. But do your best. And then once you've come back to pushing the ground away, relax the heart just a little bit, sink it down a little bit, and then come up into downward facing dog. And when you get there, feel free to pedal out your legs for just a moment. Move in whatever way you need to. We're going to take 1 more breath here. Steady the hands. Lengthen through the sides of your body, and feel free to bend your knees a lot so that the hips are back further. Okay, let's draw the shoulders back, look toward the thumbs. Inhale, shift to plank pose and pause. Puff up the belly. Exhale, send the hips back, downward facing dog. And we're just going to do that a couple more times, getting the weight into our hands. Inhale, shift forward, pausing in plank. Exhale, shift back. Inhale, shift forward. Exhale, shift back. Inhale, shift forward, lower the knees down again. Toes tucked or pointed, whichever one feels best to you here. And we're going to lower down onto the forearms, elbows beneath the shoulders. Interlacing the fingers now. I like to tuck the bottom pinky under. Press into your mat with both of your forearms. Draw the shoulders back. Steady your hips and then lift up your right knee and take a few circles with your right knee in the hip socket, or your right thigh rather, in the hip socket. And once you've taken like 2 or 3 circles in one direction, go the other way. Keep the left hip steady. Do your best to keep your collarbone wide. And lower the right knee. Lift up the left knee, take a couple circles in one direction. I'm saying a couple, but it could be 2, it could be 3. Right hip stays steady. It might feel really hard to keep your right hip from like moving to the right side. Do your best to keep that. Keep squeezing the outer right hip. Switch directions if you have not already. And then lower the left knee down. Come back up onto your hands, downward facing dog. Still breathing in and out of the nose. We're checking in for that here. Okay, from here we're going to step the right foot all the way up to the outside of the right pinky. Feel free to move around and adjust your stance if you need to. Point the right toes to point forward. Stack your right knee on top of your heel. Push down through both of your hands and lift your back heel really, really high. Now please pinch your shoulder blades together on the back of your body, widen across the chest. Steady your legs, lift the hips up a little bit away from the mat and pull your belly button in. Pressing down into the hands, you can drag or sweep your right foot all the way up into a three-legged downward facing dog. Maybe circle the right ankle a couple of times. And then on an exhale, the right knee will shift up toward the right elbow or the tricep as you shift into a plank position. Inhale, float the right leg up. And exhale, lower the right foot down. Switching sides, step your left foot up next to your left pinky tip, adjusting as you need to. Same thing here, left toes point forward, left knee over the heel. When you feel for your back foot, push into the ball of the back foot a lot so that you can feel the pinky toe mound and the big toe mound. Right? It doesn't feel like you're leaning to one side of your foot. Float the right heel high and with both feet and both hands, press evenly into the ground, looking just slightly forward in front of your mat. All right, the neck should feel pretty nice and long. Gather the energy of the legs in, steady your shoulder blades in on the back of the body while at the same time widening the hips, widening the chest, stretching the length of the legs. Drag or sweep the left foot all the way up into three-legged downward facing dog. Take a breath here. Exhale, lower the left foot down. Okay, steady both of your hands, grip into the fingertips and your thumbs and then look forward. Inhale, shift to plank pose and pause at the top. Now here from plank, you have the option of lowering your knees down behind you to modify. We're gonna practice chaturanga. And chaturanga dandasana is the half push-up that we practice a lot in class and is kind of like a foundational element to our arm balances. So as you go to lower, you're hugging your elbows in towards your ribs, lowering down halfway. Shoulders are just a bit above the elbows, right? You look back. If this isn't holding with your knees off the ground, you can always place them down. We're gonna hold for 3, 2, 1, and then lower all the way to the mat, point the toes back. Step your left arm out. Line up wrist, elbow, and shoulder, and then we'll take a twist here just to open the chest, which of course feels really, really good after holding that chaturanga. Right foot is on the left side of your mat. Inhale, come back to the middle and switch sides. Checking in and making sure the right wrist, elbow, and shoulder are lined up with each other. One more breath. And then we'll inhale to come back to the middle. Set both hands up underneath your shoulders, elbows above the wrists and fingertips. First fingers especially pointing forward. Begin to tuck your toes. And we're going to do a 5-second press up from the floor. So use your knees if you need to. You can always take a different option of a pose. Keep looking down at the ground. Hug in the elbows, firm your legs, take a big breath. And as you exhale, push down for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And from the top, downward facing dog. And look at your right pinky tip, step your right foot up next to your right pinky again. This time, once you stack your right knee over your heel, lower your left knee, come up onto the tips of your fingers, keep your shoulders engaged, and then bend your left knee, pull your heel toward your sit bone. Roll your shoulders back and reach your heart forward. Keep pulling your left heel toward your sit bone. If you're starting to notice that you're getting a little cramp in your hamstrings, you back off a little bit. That's a signal from the body that we don't use these muscles this way very much. Okay, lower the left toes down to the ground. Lift the left knee. Plant your palms. Inhale, lift the right leg up. Exhale, right knee to your right elbow. Shift into a plank position. Hold here for 3. Keep lifting. 2, 1. Inhale. Right leg up and back. Exhale, right foot to the ground. Second side, we're gonna step the left foot up next to the left pinky. And again, adjust if you need to, if you want to, checking in with where things are in space. On the tips of the fingers, anchor the left foot, lower the right knee. Okay, so my right knee is about as far back behind my hip as it can be, but you can bring your knee further forward if that feels right. Press down, engage your legs, start to bend your right knee, heel towards your sit bone. As you do that, draw the inner thighs toward each other a little. Drop the tailbone down and open the heart. And then start to lower the right foot, toes down, plant your palms. As you float the right knee, lift your hips, send your left leg up, breathe in. Exhale, left knee to left elbow or tricep, pausing here, 3, 2, keep pushing down, 1, inhale, lift the left leg, exhale, lower the left foot. 1 big breath in and out of the nose. And then we'll lower the knees and have a seat. We're gonna relax here for a second. So that was maybe like the first 15 minutes of a regular class. But hopefully we feel really warm, and the hope also is that we have activated the parts of the body that, for the most part, we're going to want to connect to when we get into crow pose. So crow pose is an arm balance. It's probably one of the most common arm balances that you see in pretty much any standard asana practice, right? Of course, there are going to be variations to practices. So again, this is in honor of being able to learn the pose and give ourselves a chance to break it all the way down. And maybe we've never had that happen before. Maybe this is just a fun practice to play. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate crow pose, or the more commonly practiced pose. Don't get too caught up in the Sanskrit, Kakasana versus Bakasana, crane versus crow. I'll identify which one is which, but for now we're just going to practice what is traditionally known as crow, which in Sanskrit is Kakasana. Okay, so I'm going to show you the shape. Keep in mind that there are a lot of different ways to get into this position, and it will always look a little different depending on the person. Okay, so you're looking for the tops of the shin blades to be on top of your triceps. The front shin blades are the front of your lower legs, just below your kneecaps. And your triceps are your upper arms between your elbow and your armpit. And the pose looks, this is one way that the pose can look. Okay, you'll notice that my elbows are bent. There is a variation wherein the arms are straight, and that's not the one that we're going to take today. And that actually is called Bakasana, crane pose. Okay, so we're focusing on crow. And so to do that, let's talk about how to get into the shape. The foundation of the shape is going to be the hands, right? The hands become kind of like your feet. That's what's touching the ground. That's where you're going to put the weight and stand on. So the hands are going to be set up in a similar way that you would set up a table pose, actually. Or it'll be a very similar, if not exactly the same, alignment as you would have for like a plank pose, or generally for your downward facing dog, give or take a few inches. So when you look down at your hands, you're positioning the wrists a little bit wider than the shoulders side to side. Right, and you can take these cues and apply them to other poses, many other poses where your hands would be down on the ground. Okay, looking at the first fingers, the index fingers are pointing most forward on the mat. Spread the other fingers apart, and then the hands are active, so you're really pulling in with the tips of the fingers and the thumbs. And as a lot of my teachers like to say, like your fingertips are kind of like the brakes. Right, so you're gripping in a little bit, which keeps you active in the forearms and really supports your wrists. Okay, now let's set ourselves up. I like to set up with the feet together. That makes this a little bit easier from a forward fold. And then you're going to crouch down, bend your knees, lift your heels. Okay, so my heels are lifted. I'm only on the balls of my feet and my toes.
And then once you get here, you're gonna have the space to lift your hips, kind of straighten the legs a little bit and start working your shins on top of your triceps. Now, as you stack your shins on top of your triceps, it might feel more like your kneecap. It might not quite feel like you're getting your whole shin blade on top of your triceps. And once you get there, keep the hands completely anchored. Root down through the four corners of your hands, grip into the fingertips and thumbs. Start to firm your arms and actively hug your forearms in toward the midline of your mat. This is important. So as the forearms hug in toward the midline and you watch them, the elbows will start to move in on top of the wrists and we want them to stay there. Yeah, so hug in the forearms. Don't stop doing that. Start to lean forward, aiming your heart way past the tips of your fingers. And then maybe you lift one foot, pull your heel towards your sit bone, and then you can put that down and lift your other foot. Maybe you lean forward, forearms stay hugging in, and maybe you lift both of your feet. And now one of the things that can be really tricky here is keeping your heart forward and not your head down, right? We're not looking to tip down onto our head. So if your head is the heaviest part of the pose, right, your head is going to lead your body toward that direction. So keeping the head lifted slightly, looking past your fingertips can be really helpful in getting your body to start shifting the weight from the hips forward into the heart. Okay, so let's try again. You might already be in the pose, maybe you're coming out of it now. So I'm now gonna do this from the ground, right? So earlier I did it where, come up and squat down. You can also squat and move from this position. And it's almost like you're trying to send your elbows back behind your shins. Palms are flat, hips lift, body weight shifts forward. Shoulders are engaged, forearms are hugging in. One or both feet lift. All right, and I'm not looking way out in front of me, which as I just did that, it almost like tipped me out of the pose. I'm looking just past my hands. Relaxed neck a bit.
And I mean, that's it. That's crow pose. That's kakasana. Now let's say from the ground, the shins meeting the triceps doesn't feel like it's gonna happen. What you can do is you can place a block. Maybe you have like a set of books instead of a block from home that you can use as a platform. And you can step your feet up on top of this block, bring them both together. Make sure that both of the feet are anchored down through the balls of the feet, right? You can really feel that weight there and the toes as well. And once you get there, now you're gonna crouch down. And then now, right, I can send the elbows back and plant the palms. And as you set up, or initially your elbows are gonna be wide, your shoulders are gonna kind of hunch in toward each other. And as you lift your hips and you keep the connection of your triceps and your shins, as you lift, elbows start to hug in. Things get a little bit more engaged toward the midline. Now I can shift forward, maybe lift a foot, maybe lift both. For those of you who feel like the ground is a little bit daunting, you can place a blanket or a pillow underneath your face. Or you can just give it a shot. All right, we're not worried about the outcome. There is an equal amount of practicing, really trusting our inner strength, and then just kind of surrendering to how far things are gonna go. And that would be pulling straight from the deeper substance of the yoga practice and implementing those things into the physical asana practice. So hopefully we have a little bit more of an understanding of crow pose. And hopefully these things will start to sink in a little bit more. If you haven't been practicing them at home very much, maybe this is an opportunity to do so. We're gonna cool ourselves down here.
Open your knees wide, bring your big toes into touch, sit your hips back on top of your heels. We're gonna take a brief twisted child's pose. Left hand forward, right arm threads underneath your chest. Shoulder away from the ear. Come up high onto the tips of your fingers on the left hand, float up your wrist and your knuckles. Inhale, come out of the twist, step out your right hand and thread your left arm underneath. And start to slow down your breathing in and out of the nose. We'll inhale to come out of the twist. Lift your hips up. Walk your knees in and flip over onto your back. And as you roll back, just pause here and split your legs. Hug in the right shin, send your left leg forward. Breathe into the back of your body and switch your legs. Notice your right foot and curl all of your toes back toward your body while extending from your right hip into your right heel. And then release your left shin, plant your feet down, set them up as wide as your mat, and guide both knees down to the right. Send your left arm out to your left side. Breathe into the left side of your body. Inhale, come back to the middle. Exhale, both knees to the left. Send your right arm out. Notice where you feel the stretch. Relax the weight of the body down. Inhale, lift both knees, center the weight of the hips down, and then open the knees. Grab onto your outer shins with your elbows inside of your knees. Take a happy baby. And this may feel really nice to straighten one leg out, bring it in and straighten the other leg. Give yourself a hug, wrap your arms around your legs. Gently release. Settle the weight of the body down onto the ground, and let's just take a few breaths, allowing the body to rest and cooling down the system and the mind inside the body. Not a full Shavasana, but just bringing in this idea. And please feel free to take this pose to give yourself that space if and when you need it. Exhale all of your next breath out through the nose. Sink the belly down. Inhale through the nose. Fill all the way up. At the top, pause your breath for 3, 2, 1. Exhale out of the nose completely, but slowly. At the bottom of the breath, hold for 3, 2, 1. Slowly inhale. Pause at the top for 3, 2, 1. Exhale slowly.
Belly sinking towards spine, reaching the bottom and holding for 3, 2, 1. Inhale fully. Try to slow in the breath. Hold at the top, 3, 2, 1. Let it go. Slowly release. Find the bottom and hold, 3, 2, 1. And then inhale. Exhale. Let's start to wiggle the fingers and the toes gently and start to roll the ankles and the wrists a little bit. Inhale, the arms overhead, lengthening out. Start to walk your feet back, bend your knees, and roll onto one side. Keep the eyes closed. Press down, come all the way up to sit. Cross the ankles once again, bring your hands together in front of your heart for prayer. Let's seal in the practice. Take a moment of acknowledgement, gratitude. Let's honor ourselves, each other in this practice. My hope today is that we feel a little bit stronger. My hope is that we are a little bit more aware of our practice so that we can continue to grow, trusting in our efforts and finding our way, expanding in our bodies, our minds, our hearts, both on and off of the mat, crow pose, of course, and beyond. Let's end today's Asana Breakdown practice with one final Om. Exhale all of the breath out of the nose first. Inhale through the nose. Om. Gently bow the head. Thank you so much for joining me for today's practice. I'll see you in the next one.